Boom. In that instant, the clash of fists and palms brought forth a destructive force that caused the very space surrounding the two combatants to collapse. It was as if a black hole had formed, devouring all light around them. Gu Shihuang's lips curled into a savage grin, as though he had already witnessed the moment when Mu Chen would be shattered and crushed under his overwhelming power. Bang! A deep, ear-piercing sound rang out, but just as it did, Gu Shihuang's sinister expression abruptly changed. A look of shock appeared in his eyes. Because in the instant of the collision, he distinctly felt a tyrannical, unmatched power explode from Mu Chen's fist. This power surged like a devastating flood, far surpassing that of an Upper Earth Supreme. This was certainly not the kind of strength an Upper Earth Supreme should possess. Boom! A visible wave of destruction erupted. As the shockwave passed, mountains within a 1,000-mile radius were flattened to the ground, and even the very space itself shattered into cracks. Dirt and debris flew in all directions. Mu Chen's body was violently shaken, and he was sent hurtling backward by the shockwave, leaving hundreds of deep footprints behind him, each one seemingly bottomless. Gu Shihuang also stumbled back, retreating over 20 steps. Though it appeared he had the advantage, his face was as dark as if it were about to drip with water. He stared at Mu Chen, his gaze a mixture of surprise and fury. He never imagined that Mu Chen, after enduring such a direct confrontation, could have blocked his attack. To withstand the strike of a Peak Earth Supreme with only the power of an Upper Earth Supreme? For a moment, Gu Shihuang found the situation almost comical and unbelievable. His palm, even against a semi-perfect dragon elephant, would have left them severely injured if they weren't careful. Yet here Mu Chen was, still full of life and energy, as if he hadn't been harmed at all. While Gu Shihuang was in shock, Mu Chen rubbed his fist, his eyes filled with awe. The Earth Supreme Great Perfection was indeed formidable. His previous punch, which appeared ordinary, actually carried the power of the spirit of the true dragon and phoenix. Combined with the enhanced spiritual energy from the pagoda's transformation within him, it was safe to say that even Dragon Elephant might not have been able to take that blow. But after clashing with Gu Shihuang head-on, Mu Chen had only slightly been pushed back. This demonstrated the true power of great perfection. However, facing such a formidable opponent, Mu Chen felt no fear. On the contrary, his eyes burned with even greater intensity. The path of the strong was one of continuous challenges, and he believed that Gu Shihuang would be his first true test of great perfection. Mu Chen turned his head to Luo Li and Dragon Elephant, lightly waving his hand, signaling them to work together to stop another Earth Supreme Great Perfection. Luo Li and Dragon Elephant nodded, then soared into the sky, their gazes locked onto Liang Evil Fish. Heh? A semi-Great Perfection and a lower Earth Supreme? You dare challenge me with this kind of lineup? You must be courting death, Liang Evil Fish sneered coldly. Old Gu, I'll help you once I've dealt with them. Liang Evil Fish burst into laughter, his body shooting upward, heading straight for Luo Li and Dragon Elephant. Humph, just an Upper Earth Supreme. I'll take care of him with a flip of my hand. Gu Shihuang sneered, clearly displeased at the challenge to his pride. As he spoke, his gaze remained fixed on Mu Chen, like a venomous snake coiling around its prey. Vast spiritual energy surged from his body, expanding into what seemed like a small world, overwhelming and boundless. It was evident to everyone that Gu Shihuang had stopped underestimating his opponent and was now preparing to unleash his full strength. Feeling the terrifying pressure radiating from Gu Shihuang, Mu Chen's eyes flashed with brilliance. In the next moment, he took a deep breath, his hands forming seals with lightning speed. Endless spiritual light erupted from behind Mu Chen. Purple and gold radiance coalesced, forming a towering supreme dharma form, his immortal golden body. As Mu Chen broke through to Upper Earth Supreme, this immortal golden body grew to a height of about 1,000 feet. But when compared to other supreme dharma forms, which could reach tens of thousands of feet or even hundreds of thousands, it still appeared somewhat small. However, facing the diminutive immortal golden body, Gu Shihuang surprisingly did not mock it. Instead, his gaze grew increasingly solemn because he could sense that when the purple gold dharma form appeared, even he felt a trace of dangerous aura. What kind of supreme dharma form is this? Gu Shihuang furrowed his brows. The immortal golden body was so rare that even he couldn't recognize it. However, he was certain that if ranked, this purple gold dharma form would undoubtedly place within the top 20 of the supreme dharma form ranking. A supreme dharma form of this level was something even a person from the Futu ancient clan like Gu Shihuang had never possessed. No matter what kind of supreme dharma form you have, your own level limits its power, Gu Shihuang snorted coldly. Then, he took a sudden step forward, and instantly, A thunderous lion's roar echoed through the heavens and earth. Spiritual light gathered behind him, and after a few breaths, a massive supreme dharma form, over 100,000 feet tall, materialized. This supreme dharma form emitted a silver glow and appeared extremely rugged. What was surprising was that the head of this dharma form was a terrifyingly fierce lion's head. A fierce aura emanated from this supreme dharma form, making the world around them grow cold. Chen gazed at the lion-headed supreme dharma form, his eyes flickering as he whispered, "The Tian lion dharma form, ranked 41st on the 99th supreme dharma form ranking?" Xun'er Huang's supreme dharma form was clearly extraordinary. As soon as the Tian lion dharma form appeared, Xun'er Huang's expression grew grave. The dangerous aura radiating from him had reached its peak. "With the strength of a mere upper earth supreme, you forced me to summon my supreme dharma form. Chen, you should be proud." Xun'er Huang appeared on the shoulder of the Tian lion dharma form, looking down at Chen. His indifferent voice reverberated through the heavens and earth. In the past, unless facing a fellow grand perfection expert of the same level, Xun'er Huang would never use his supreme dharma form. Yet now, after only a brief encounter with Chen, he had already summoned it. Clearly, Chen had made him feel an overwhelming sense of unease. However, Chen paid no attention to his words. He stomped his foot, quickly forming seals with his hands. Immediately, mysterious purple-gold light patterns appeared on the surface of his immortal golden body. These were the immortal divine runes. One by one, the immortal divine runes detached and spiraled around Chen like purple-gold dragons. In just a few breaths, 50 of them had appeared. Back when Chen fought Liang Evil Fish, he had exhausted all his strength to form just 23 immortal divine runes. But now, with his strength having reached the upper earth supreme level, the number of immortal divine runes had nearly doubled. The 50 immortal divine runes swirled around Chen, releasing terrifying waves of energy that made the surrounding space seem to strain under the pressure. Facing an Earth Supreme Grand Perfection opponent, Chen had no intention of holding back. He launched his attack without mercy. "Go!" Chen waved his sleeve, and 50 immortal divine runes shot out like purple-gold divine needles. With an indescribable sharpness, they shot toward Xun'er Huang at an incredibly fast speed. Xun'er Huang narrowed his eyes as he watched the immortal divine needles approach. He sneered coldly, then stomped his foot. Immediately, the Tian lion dharma form beneath him opened its massive mouth and roared violently. Tian lion roar. The roar of an ancient Tian lion reverberated through the heavens, accompanied by a violent sound wave carrying destructive power that swept outward. This sound wave attack was extremely domineering, able to bypass many defenses. If the person in front of Xun'er Huang were a lower Earth Supreme, they would likely be torn apart by this roar. Bang! Bang! The immortal divine needles that shot toward Xun'er Huang were immediately blocked, knocked back by the overwhelming sound wave. Fortunately, the immortal divine runes were profound and were not shattered. The fierce lions were swept forward rapidly toward Chen. As expected of an Earth Supreme Grand Perfection, Chen couldn't help but sigh. Xun'er Huang was clearly very skilled in sound wave attacks, and this type of attack was exceptionally difficult to defend against. If the sound wave were to penetrate his mind, causing a disturbance in his spiritual power, Chen would essentially lose the battle. However, the unfortunate part was that although the sonic attack was troublesome, it was very difficult for Chen to find any effective countermeasures against it. The ever-changing nature of the immortal divine runes allowed him to be practically immune to any strange attacks or restrictions. Suddenly, Chen formed a hand seal, and in the next moment, the 50 immortal divine runes that had been recoiling back erupted with brilliant purple-golden light, quickly merging together. Immortal divine runes, ever-changing, immortal golden bell. Boom! Amid the purple-golden glow, a massive purple-golden bell materialized. The bell then swayed, and in an instant, the ancient and resounding sound of the bell echoed out, with layers upon layers of purple-golden sound waves sweeping outward, colliding violently with the lion's roar sound waves. Bang! 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 In midair, layers of space shattered continuously, and at the point where the two sound waves collided, the space caved in, forming collapses. Xun'er Huang looked at the sound waves being neutralized, his expression growing even darker. Clearly, he hadn't expected those purple golden runes to be so miraculous, capable of changing freely, and each change seemed like a completely immovable divine technique. Such an exquisite method was something he had never encountered before. Xun'er Huang's expression grew increasingly grim, and a killing intent flashed in his eyes. The more outstanding Chen's performance, the more he could not be allowed to live. After all, Mu Chen's mother held a high position within the clan and had some supporters, although these years, she had been in hiding due to her imprisonment. If one day Mu Chen truly returned to the Futu ancient clan, he would undoubtedly be a strong competitor for the next clan leader. This was something Xun'er Wang absolutely did not want to see. Today, I must deal with this kid. Even if I can't kill him, I must destroy his sacred floating pagoda. At this moment, the killing intent in Xun'er Wang's heart toward Mu Chen had reached its peak. Buzz buzz. The aftermath of the collision of sound waves gradually faded, and the sea around Emerald Spirit Island erupted into monstrous waves, resembling an apocalyptic scene. Standing atop the Heavenly Lion avatar, Xun'er Wang's face was dark. The astonishing combat power Mu Chen had displayed made him feel both startled and filled with intense killing intent. Although Mu Chen had such a powerful mother, Qing Yanjing, who seemed to possess almost limitless strength, he had not received a single bit of cultivation resources from the Futu ancient clan in all these years. Even so, he had managed to reach such an astonishing level at his age. Therefore, if we were to talk about talent, Mu Chen might even rival their young master Xian Luo, who was considered a once-in-a-thousand-years genius of the Futu ancient clan. If one day Mu Chen truly returned to the Futu ancient clan, he would undoubtedly become the strongest contender for the position of clan leader. A dense killing intent surged from Xun'er Wang's eyes. In the next moment, he took a deep breath, without hesitation, and suddenly formed another hand seal. Boom. As he completed his hand seal, it was as if the world itself trembled violently, for the Heavenly Lion avatar suddenly radiated a terrifying oppressive force. Under that pressure, even the heavens and earth seemed to shake. Roar. Roar. The Heavenly Lion avatar continuously emitted earth-shattering lion roars. Each roar stirred up spiritual energy storms in the air, and as the roars intensified, a tiny spot of black light suddenly appeared at the forehead of the Heavenly Lion avatar. Upon seeing that black light, even Mu Chen's pupils contracted slightly, clearly sensing the enormous danger. He immediately activated his spiritual energy, going into full alert. From a distance, trapped within the cosmic starfall array, the green serpent ancestor's expression changed slightly as he saw this scene. He was very familiar with Xun'er Wang and could immediately tell what the latter was about to do. This old man actually used this move? Is that kid really that hard to deal with? The green serpent ancestor's eyes flashed as he recalled his past encounters with Xun'er Wang. He knew just how terrifying this killing move was. Even though he was at the great perfection stage like Xun'er Wang, he wouldn't dare to take this move head-on. However, now, Xun'er Wang was using it against Mu Chen, a mere upper earth supreme, which seemed like overkill. However, the green serpent ancestor was just as cautious as a sly old fox. His insight was extraordinary, and with a single glance, he could tell that Xun'er Wang was not using a sledgehammer to crack a nut, but rather that ordinary methods seemed utterly ineffective against Mu Chen, who appeared to be merely an upper earth supreme. The situation seems off, the green serpent ancestor muttered to himself. His personality, as treacherous and cautious as a serpent, had led him to agree to Xun'er Wang's invitation to come and settle things, thinking that Mu Chen, as just an upper earth supreme, was no threat at all. But now, it seemed that this so-called upper earth supreme was far from simple. Moreover, the green serpent ancestor turned his gaze in another direction, where a breathtaking battle was also erupting. Young Evil Fish was currently in the midst of a fierce fight, facing two opponents who were proving unexpectedly troublesome. There was the dragon elephant, whose power was terrifying. Though only half a step into grand perfection, one wrong move could cause even a full grand perfection expert to suffer. And the stunningly beautiful young girl was almost unbelievable. Despite being just a lower earth supreme, when she unleashed her supreme dharma form, even the green serpent ancestor's expression changed drastically. Clearly, he recognized the Luotian divine body, which was renowned throughout the great thousand worlds. With the power of the Luotian divine body, Luoli, though only assisting in battle, managed to cause enough trouble for Liang Evil Fish to delay him from fully overpowering the dragon elephant. As a result, the situation had reached a standoff. Looking at it now, the once invincible lineup of the three Grand Earth Supremes, with such a luxurious array, had somehow lost its advantage without anyone even realizing it. Noticing this, the green serpent ancestor's expression shifted, his eyes flashing as he wondered what he was thinking. At the same time, far off in the distance, the Heavenly Lion avatar's forehead had become filled with black light, swirling as if it were a small black hole. Xun'er Wang's cold gaze locked onto Mu Chen, his voice like a venomous snake, as it rang out. In all these years, those who have forced me to use this move were all grand perfection experts. To use it on an upper Earth Supreme, this is the first time. So, you can just obediently die for me. As the final word left his mouth, Xun'er Huang's expression twisted into a ferocious grin. His hands suddenly shifted, creating countless afterimages of hand seals. His roar shook the heavens. Supreme Divine Ability, Doomsday Heavenly Lion. With his roar, the black hole on the Heavenly Lion avatar's brow spun wildly, and in the next instant, a black beam of light shot out. That beam transformed into a black lion, only a few dozen meters in size, its body covered in mysterious patterns, exuding a nearly apocalyptic aura. As the black lion charged forward, space itself shattered, as if all life had been drained from the area. Mu Chen's expression turned grave as he watched the black lion hurtling towards him. Indeed, grand perfection truly lived up to its name. This kind of supreme divine ability could only be described as terrifying. The power of such a move was likely beyond the reach of ordinary great divine abilities. Taking a deep breath, Mu Chen knew that this was Xun'er Huang's killing blow. If he couldn't withstand it, even the protection of his immortal golden body wouldn't be enough to save him. He was certain that defeat was inevitable if he failed to resist. With that thought, he stomped his foot hard, and the boundless spiritual power inside him surged like a flood, constantly flowing into his immortal golden body. Buzz. Once again, the immortal divine runes, like a purple golden dragon, spiraled around him. In just a few breaths, the number had reached 55. This was the absolute limit of Mu Chen's power at this moment. When Xun'er Huang saw the 55 immortal divine runes, he sneered coldly. After his earlier probing, he knew the power of these runes, but if there were only 55, they were far from enough to resist his killing move. If that's all you have, then just lie down and die here. Xun'er Huang laughed wickedly, and the black lion, exuding an aura of apocalypse, suddenly sped up, tearing through the void, charging directly towards Mu Chen's immortal golden body. The black light rapidly closed in on Mu Chen. He glanced at the 55 immortal divine runes surrounding him, pursing his lips. He knew, too, that 55 was still not enough. Since that's the case. Mu Chen's eyes flickered slightly as his hands formed seals once again. In the next instant, the space beside him rippled, and a figure slowly emerged, another Mu Chen, clad in black robes. Xun'er Huang's expression instantly turned to one of disbelief the moment he saw the second Mu Chen appear. It wasn't just a visual copy. The black-robed Mu Chen radiated the same formidable spiritual energy as the original. Another Upper Earth Supreme. Impossible. Xun'er Huang gasped in shock. But Mu Chen paid him no mind. The moment the black-robed figure appeared, he placed both hands upon the immortal golden body. In the next breath, an overwhelming torrent of spiritual energy burst from him, pouring into the immortal golden body. With this new infusion of energy, the immortal golden body erupted with brilliant purple-gold light. One by one, the immortal divine runes reformed, condensing with dazzling intensity. In mere seconds, the runes surrounding Mu Chen's body surged to a staggering total of 80. 80 immortal divine runes swirled around him, unleashing a terrifying aura that sent shockwaves through space. Only then did Mu Chen allow himself a small breath of relief. With a flick of his sleeve, the 80 runes shot outward like bolts of lightning. Immortal divine runes, endless transformations, immortal shield. The runes twisted and fused in a flash, forming a colossal purple-gold shield nearly 1,000 feet tall before him. It shimmered with a timeless aura, exuding an indestructible presence. Even an ultimate attack from someone at the level of great perfection might be held at bay by this defense. Boom. Just as the immortal shield took form, the massive black lion came hurtling toward it. Though smaller than the shield, the instant of impact made Mu Chen's pupils contract sharply. He had underestimated the power behind Xun'er Huang's strike. A deafening roar shook the heavens, followed by a surge of spiritual energy forming a storm tens of thousands of feet tall. The tempest tore through space with savage force. Black energy coiled around the immortal shield, and under the corrosive aura of doomsday destruction, a faint crack appeared along its surface. You think you can block my killing blow with this? Foolish child. Xun'er Huang laughed wildly at the sky. Bang! Amid his laughter, the immortal shield finally reached its limit and shattered with a thunderous explosion. In the aftermath, remnants of dark energy surged toward Mu Chen's position. Xun'er Huang's face twisted with a cold grin. Even though the shield had absorbed the brunt of the attack, the leftover power would be enough to seriously wound Mu Chen, rendering him incapable of continuing the fight. As the black light quickly faded, Mu Chen's position became visible once more. Xun'er Huang's gaze darkened. Mu Chen was still standing atop the immortal golden body, completely unharmed. However, the black-robed Mu Chen at his side was in shambles, his spiritual light dim, and his combat power depleted. Clearly, in that critical moment, the black-robed Mu Chen had absorbed the full brunt of the attack, sparing the real Mu Chen from harm. "You cunning brat." Gu Shihuang's expression turned grim as he sneered, "No matter. Wounding this avatar is as good as severing one of your limbs. Let's see what you do next." Though he had failed to cripple Mu Chen himself, destroying the black-robed incarnation meant Mu Chen could no longer draw on its power. But as Gu Shihuang sneered, Mu Chen looked up and gave him a strange, almost playful smile. "Who told you? I only have one avatar?" The words made Gu Shihuang's pupils contract in an instant. A chilling sense of danger surged in his chest. He whirled around, only to see the space behind him split open. A figure in white robes shot out like a flash of lightning. Another Mu Chen, and this one held in his hand an ancient, crystal-clear longsword. The moment Gu Shihuang's eyes landed on that sword, his soul nearly fled his body, for from that crystal longsword, he sensed the presence of a heavenly supreme. Seeing the terrified look in Gu Shihuang's eyes, Mu Chen, dressed in white, gave him a faint smile. In the next moment, the crystal longsword in his hand sliced through the space, striking down at Gu Shihuang's head in an unavoidable motion. "Old fool, it's time for you to die." Swish. Mu Chen, holding the ancient crystal longsword, instantly pierced the space. The strike came down on Gu Shihuang's head with furious speed. Like a phantom, the attack was so sudden that even with Gu Shihuang's strength, he couldn't avoid it in time. He could only watch in horror as the sword cut through the air. In that moment, Gu Shihuang's soul nearly left his body. He could sense that the crystal longsword in Mu Chen's hand emanated an aura so terrifying that it struck fear into his heart. That aura must belong to a heavenly supreme. The owner of this sword was undoubtedly a genuine heavenly supreme. Thus, when the sword descended, even with Gu Shihuang's perfect Earth Supreme strength, he was filled with overwhelming fear. He never imagined that Mu Chen would wield such a terrifying weapon. This sword clearly surpassed the level of high-grade holy objects. The sword light held down, as if there was no way to avoid it. But Gu Shihuang, being an old fox, pulled off a strange move at the last second and managed to tilt his head just enough to avoid a fatal blow. Swoosh! The crystal sword's light sliced through his ear, landing on his shoulder. In that instant, even Gu Shihuang's formidable body was overwhelmed with an indescribable sting of pain. "Ah!" A shrill scream escaped from Gu Shihuang's mouth. Almost half of his body below the shoulder was severed by the sword, and as the sword light passed, the crystal-like glow relentlessly devoured his flesh. Even with the recovery abilities of an Earth Supreme, he couldn't heal in time. Blood poured from his wound, making Gu Shihuang look utterly miserable. Boom! Terrified beyond belief, Gu Shihuang stumbled back, uncaring for the half of his body that had been severed. He retreated over 10,000 feet before finally stopping, his eyes filled with horror as he looked at Mu Chen in the distance. What a pity! Mu Chen, holding the crystal longsword, shook his head regretfully as he looked at the half-severed Gu Shihuang. Earlier, he had used his main body and an avatar as bait, drawing all of Gu Shihuang's attention so he could secretly launch this unimaginable sneak attack. The result was clear. Even Gu Shihuang couldn't avoid the strike, although in the end, he had managed to avoid a fatal wound. Otherwise, even if Gu Shihuang survived, he would have lost all combat ability. Mu Chen flicked the sword, and the blood on it evaporated. He glanced at the crystal longsword, sensing that the power within it had dissipated slightly. He estimated that the power of the Heavenly Emperor's sword could probably only be used 2 more times before it was completely depleted. After that, the Heavenly Emperor's sword would no longer have such terrifying destructive power. But now, Gu Shihuang's combat ability should have decreased by at least 60 to 70%. He is no longer a threat. Mu Chen looked at Mu Chen, who nodded slightly. He then charged forward once more. The crystal longsword seemed to glow again. This was the perfect moment. Gu Shihuang was at his weakest, and such an opportunity must not be missed. Seeing Mu Chen charging at him again, Gu Shihuang didn't dare to clash directly. He hurriedly retreated, clearly terrified by the power of the Heavenly Emperor's sword. Buzz! Standing atop his immortal golden body, Mu Chen again activated the Immortal Divine Runes. Waves of Immortal Divine Runes soared into the air and launched an assault on Gu Shihuang. In the sky, Gu Shihuang, who had initially been in the dominant position, was now in a desperate situation. He was constantly evading Mu Chen's pursuit while also defending against Mu Chen's attacks. For a moment, he seemed trapped in a series of life-threatening scenarios. Meanwhile, on another battlefield, Liang Evil Fish, who was entangled with Long Xiang and Luoli, sensed something and his face changed dramatically. He never expected that Gushi Wang would be pushed to such a desperate point by Mu Chen. Damn it, this Sin child actually has such power? Liang Sheiyu's heart trembled, and a flash of panic flickered in his eyes. If Gushi Wang were to lose the battle, their fate today would surely be disastrous. He had to find a way to help Gushi Wang. At a time like this, you'd better take care of yourself. However, just as he was distracted, a sinister laugh suddenly echoed. Long Xiang's figure appeared before him like a ghost, and with a single punch, the roar of dragons and elephants filled the air. It was as though the punch contained the combined strength of countless dragons and elephants, and it struck heavily against the spirit energy barrier in front of him. Boom. The sturdy spirit energy barrier shattered instantly, and Liang Sheiyu was blasted backward. His complexion alternated between green and pale, barely managing to suppress the surging spirit energy within his body. He saw Long Xiang coming at him like a shadow once again. With a furious curse, he focused his mind and prepared to confront both Long Xiang and Luoli. While Liang Sheiyu was engaged, the green serpent ancestor, trapped within the cosmic starfall array, looked grimly at Gushi Wang, who was facing imminent danger. Occasionally, his gaze would flicker with horror when he glanced at the Heavenly Emperor sword in Mu Chen's hand. Earlier, he had witnessed with his own eyes as Mu Chen, dressed in white, wielded the Heavenly Emperor sword and nearly killed Gushi Wang. This kid is so strange. He's clearly just an Upper Earth Supreme, but he has two avatars with the same strength and essence as his true body. And that sword, it definitely belongs to the Heavenly Supreme. Could this kid have the Heavenly Supreme behind him? The mere thought sent a chill down the green serpent ancestor's spine. He was all alone, with no powerful backing like the Futu Ancient clan. If Mu Chen's Heavenly Supreme patron showed up, not only would the Futu Ancient clan be in trouble, but even he, a perfect Earth Supreme, might find himself in danger. Gushi Wang and the others had the Futu Ancient clan to protect them, but he had no one. That damn old fool dragged me into this mess. This kid, he doesn't seem like someone with no background at all. The green serpent ancestor cursed frantically in his heart, for the situation before him was nothing like what Gushi Wang had described. This place isn't safe. This is a grudge between that kid and the Futu Ancient clan, and I have no reason to get involved. Gritting his teeth, the green serpent ancestor suddenly clenched his hand. A golden talisman appeared in his grasp, radiating spatial fluctuations. It was a teleportation ancient talisman, obtained by the green serpent ancestor during an ancient ruin expedition. Using it would allow him to escape any trap or dangerous situation. He hadn't intended to use it, but if the Heavenly Supreme behind Mu Chen showed up, he would have no way to escape. With that thought, the green serpent ancestor stopped hesitating. With a flick of his finger, the talisman ignited in his hand, sending out a powerful spatial shockwave. In the next instant, a vortex formed, breaking through the cosmic starfall array's seal. Green Serpent, what are you doing? Gushi Wang, sensing the powerful spatial fluctuations, immediately shouted in shock. But the green serpent ancestor paid him no mind. With a single step, he entered the vortex, disappearing without a backward glance. Damn it! Seeing the green serpent ancestor escape on his own, Gushi Wang was enraged. Without the green serpent ancestor's suppression, Ling Shi would take control of the cosmic starfall array to deal with them. Faced with such a powerful spirit array, Gushi Wang, already badly injured and being relentlessly blocked by Mu Chen, would have little hope of surviving if trapped. Buzz, buzz. His fears were confirmed. The moment the green serpent ancestor fled, the cosmic starfall array that enveloped the island shook violently. Then, starlight beams of light descended from the sky, sweeping toward him, trying to trap him. Gushi Wang looked up at the descending starlight, his scalp tingling. This array was originally capable of resisting a perfect Earth Supreme, so if he were at his peak, he wouldn't be afraid. But now, in his injured state, and with Mu Chen blocking him, if he were truly trapped, and Mu Chen used that terrifying longsword twice, he would surely perish today. The thought of death filled Gushi Wang with boundless fear. Gritting his teeth, he suddenly shouted, "You damn brat, you're forcing me into this." With a roar, he clenched his palm, a jade slip appearing in his hand, which he immediately crushed. Boom. The jade slip shattered, dissolving into a surge of radiant spiritual light that shot into the sky. In the end, it formed an enormous spatial vortex, and within that vortex, a terrifying fluctuation surged forth as if ripping through space itself. Witnessing this scene, Mu Chen's expression shifted sharply. That wave of spiritual energy was unfathomably deep. Just brushing against it with his senses instilled a sense of hopeless despair. Heavenly Supreme. Mu Chen's pupils constricted. He hadn't expected Xun'er Wang to be capable of summoning even a Heavenly Supreme from the Futu ancient clan. His face darkened as a stone talisman flickered to life in his palm. If the Futu ancient clan truly intended to send a Heavenly Supreme, then he had no choice but to use this final favor to call upon the martial ancestor himself. The moment that immense disturbance erupted, the battle on Luo Li's side came to an immediate halt. Liang Evil Fish flashed forward, appearing beside Xun'er Wang. Staring at the enormous vortex, he couldn't help but blurt out, "Old fool, don't you remember what the first elders said? Heavenly Supremes are forbidden from intervening against the Sin Child." "I don't care anymore." Xun'er Wang growled through clenched teeth. "Elder Blacklight is one of ours. As long as we keep it quiet, the first elder won't find out." Hearing this, Liang Evil Fish could only nod grimly. "Destroy that spatial vortex." Mu Chen's voice rang out like thunder, echoing across the battlefield. If they could shatter the vortex, the Heavenly Supreme would be unable to descend. As his shout fell, countless beams of starlight from the cosmic starfall array rained down like meteors, crashing toward the vortex. Mu Chen also activated his immortal golden body, and streaks of immortal divine runes soared into the sky, striking at the vortex. Longxiang and Luo Li joined in, unleashing their full power in a bid to destroy the vortex. But Xun'er Wang merely let out a cold laugh at their futile efforts. The endless vortex rapidly expanded, and just as the bombardment of attacks was about to hit, an ancient voice, thunderous and filled with unmatched authority, pierced through the vast space and echoed across the world. "Wretches! How dare you act so arrogantly before this old man?" Boom! An indescribably massive hand of spiritual energy thrust forth from the vortex. With a single sweep, all incoming attacks were utterly annihilated. That colossal hand descended with a howl, blotting out the sky and engulfing the entire island beneath its shadow. Longxiang's face turned deathly pale. In the face of the Heavenly Supreme's might, they were utterly powerless. Mu Chen's gaze grew even darker. As the massive hand came crashing down, he clenched his jaw, preparing to crush the stone talisman. But at that very moment, the space in front of them suddenly shattered, and from the crack leapt a crimson gourd in a bizarre, almost playful motion. "TCH, I finally found a good seedling, and now you people from the Futu ancient clan want to ruin it? My Supreme Spirit ancient clan won't let this slide." As the crimson gourd emerged, a mocking voice rang out right beside Mu Chen and the others. Pop! The colossal divine hand, crashing down like the hand of a god, brimmed with overwhelming might, unstoppable and absolute. But just as it was about to engulf everything, space split apart once again in front of Mu Chen and the others. The crimson gourd sprang out with an eerie motion. As it appeared, the mouth of the gourd erupted with a torrent of red light. From a distance, it resembled the mouth of a volcanic crater. Those red beams seemed to blaze with searing flames, and within each ray surged what looked like a sea of molten lava. The temperature across the world soared in an instant. Even the surrounding ocean began to bubble and steam. Boom! The crimson light shot skyward, colliding head-on with the descending divine hand. At the moment of impact, the heavens and earth trembled. Countless clouds ignited, consumed by the terrifying heat. Thud! Under the searing waves of red light, the massive hand withered at an alarming rate. Cracks spread rapidly across its surface. Then, in the next instant, it was completely petrified, transformed into a massive stone hand. Rumble! The giant stone hand shattered into countless fragments, falling like a rain of boulders from the sky, stirring up monstrous waves in the ocean below. High above, both Xun'er Wang and Liang Evil Fish stared wide-eyed at the sight of the shattered hand. Terror flooded their faces as the reality of what had just happened set in. Clearly, the scene before them was enough to terrify them. The person who had made the move was none other than a true Heavenly Supreme, and yet, despite the terrifying power of the attack, it was effortlessly neutralized. How terrifying, then, must the one who had countered it be? In the face of such a being, they, as perfect Earth Supremes, were nothing more than ants. Whoosh! After breaking through the Heavenly Supreme's massive hand, the crimson gourd shot out, eventually landing nearby, in the astonished gaze of Mu Chen and the others. It was only at this point that they noticed an elderly figure in plain clothes holding a cane, who had appeared there without them noticing. The elderly man, with a smile on his face, reached out to take the crimson gourd. He brought it to his lips, taking a drink. In that moment, Chen and the others could see what appeared to be magma-like liquid, bright red in color, flowing into the old man's mouth. Even though they hadn't touched the liquid, they could still feel a terrifying heat emanating from it. This made them realize that the magma-like liquid the old man was drinking as though it were wine was definitely not something they could handle. Chen and Luo Li exchanged a glance, both filled with suspicion. The elderly man in front of them was far too mysterious, and from his earlier action, it was clear he was indeed a true heavenly supreme. However, they obviously did not recognize this heavenly supreme. Why had he intervened to help them? Despite their doubts, the elderly man seemed unconcerned. After taking another sip from the gourd, he raised his head and looked at the space vortex behind Xun'er Huang and the others, which led to an unknown place. He chuckled and said, "You're someone with a prominent position in the Futu ancient clan. Why lower yourself to deal with some juniors?" Xun'er Huang and Liang Evil Fish were both silent, not daring to speak. The space vortex behind them was quiet for a moment before a hoarse voice rang out. "So it's the Red Flame Old Immortal of the Supreme Spirit Ancient Clan. However, the Futu Ancient Clan and your Supreme Spirit Ancient Clan have always kept to themselves. Why interfere in our clan's affairs today?" The elderly man, known as Red Flame Old Immortal, shook his head with a smile and replied, "There's a potential talent here that I've been searching for years. How could I let your Futu Ancient Clan destroy it? Humph, this child is the sin child of my Futu Ancient Clan. If your Supreme Spirit Ancient Clan takes him, the resulting commotion will be something even you, Red Flame Old Immortal, won't be able to handle." The voice from the vortex was filled with anger, causing the space to tremble. Red Flame Old Immortal rolled his eyes, pointing at Luo Li, then at Chen, and said, "The talent I'm referring to is her, not him." Seeing this, Chen awkwardly shrugged, unable to do anything but accept the situation. Upon hearing this, the voice in the space vortex seemed to breathe a sigh of relief, and then said solemnly, "In that case, you may take her, but this sin child must remain." Luo Li immediately responded, "If Chen stays, I will never leave." As soon as her words fell, she looked at Red Flame Old Immortal and softly said, "I understand your intentions, Senior." Red Flame Old Immortal smiled kindly at her words, then turned to the space vortex and said, "It seems I can't keep this boy. Since that's the case, if you're unwilling, then I'll have to experience the power of your Futu Ancient Clan's pagoda." As he spoke, the crimson gourd in his hand began to emit a faint red glow, and a terrifying heat seemed to rise between the heavens and earth. Seeing Red Flame Old Immortal's firm resolve, there was a silence from the space vortex. The Heavenly Supreme of the Futu Ancient Clan appeared to be quite angry, but since today's actions had been his personal decision, there would certainly be trouble if the clan found out. Especially if the matter reached Qing Yanjing's ears. With that person's temper, if things escalated, even the first elder wouldn't be able to suppress it. In that case, the one who would suffer would likely be him. As the silence continued, Red Flame Old Immortal glanced at Chen, and a trace of astonishment crossed his eyes. With a sigh, he said, "This boy is also a fine talent. Your Futu Ancient Clan truly doesn't know how fortunate you are. With such a talent, if you properly nurture him, he will surely become another heavenly supreme in the future. Yet, you've made him a sin child. Truly, you are blind." Upon hearing Red Flame Old Immortal's evaluation of Chen, a muffled grunt came from the space vortex, but the voice made no attempt to defend itself. Instead, it only snorted, "Since you, Red Flame Old Immortal, insist on meddling, then do as you wish. However, I hope you can bear the consequences of your actions when the time comes. That is my business, and has nothing to do with you," the Red Flame Old Immortal said with a chuckle. In the swirling vortex of space, the Heavenly Supreme from the Futu Ancient Clan understood that today's matter would not progress any further. Immediately, a spiritual energy storm surged, enveloping Xun'er Huang and Liang Evil Fish, and pulled them into the vortex. Inside the vortex, the spatial fluctuations erupted, gradually dissipating into the world. As the vortex dispersed, the terrifying pressure that had enveloped the heavens and earth quickly faded, and the world seemed to brighten once more. Chen, Luo Li, and Long Xiang all breathed a collective sigh of relief. The pressure from the Heavenly Supreme had been overwhelming, and such an existence was certainly beyond their current capabilities. Thank you for your help, Senior. Chen turned around and respectfully cupped his hands toward the red flame old immortal, expressing his gratitude. The red flame old immortal waved his hand and gave Chen a curious glance. With a smile, he said, "Kid, even without my intervention, I doubt anyone could have stopped you today." He glanced knowingly at the stone talisman still in Chen's hand, evidently sensing the powerful aura lingering on it. Even he felt a hint of shock from that energy. Chen smiled slightly, then exchanged a look with Luoli. He whispered, "Senior, may I ask what business you have with Luoli?" He didn't hide the stone talisman, instead allowing the red flame old immortal to investigate. It was a subtle form of deterrence, as Chen was uncertain about the old immortal's intentions. If it wasn't a good purpose, Chen wanted him to understand that while they might not be able to fight the Heavenly Supreme, they were not without means. In this world, sometimes knowing how to borrow strength was a form of power in itself. Luoli also cast a bright and curious gaze at the red flame old immortal. The latter, upon noticing her look, grinned and said, "What I want from her is simple. I just wish for her to become the saintess of my supreme spirit ancient clan." Another saintess? Upon hearing this, both Chen and Luoli's expressions changed slightly. Ahem, don't confuse the saintess of my supreme spirit ancient clan with the saintess of the Western Heaven Battle Hall. Seeing their wary looks, the red flame old immortal hurriedly clarified. It seemed he was aware that the Western Battle Emperor had once attempted to recruit Chen as the saintess. "Senior, I am now the clan leader of the Luogod clan, and I am not of the Supreme Spirit Ancient clan, so I must decline your offer, though I appreciate your intentions." Luoli shook her head gently, rejecting the red flame old immortal's offer. While the Supreme Spirit Ancient clan was one of the 5 ancient clans of the Great Thousand World, she had no interest in such an alliance. Seeing Luoli's decisive refusal, the red flame old immortal was momentarily stunned. Given the prestige of the Supreme Spirit Ancient clan, no one in the Great Thousand World would fail to see it as an opportunity. Yet, here was Luoli, who completely disregarded it. Faced with this outcome, the red flame old immortal could only sigh, clearly distressed. Chen and Luoli exchanged a glance and, without a word, chose to ignore him. Chen turned toward the depths of Emerald Spirit Island, then whispered to Luoli, "Let's save Lingxi first." Luoli nodded slightly, and the two of them headed directly toward the island's depths, leaving the red flame old immortal standing there, looking perplexed and unsure of how to persuade them. Meanwhile, far away in another region, in the Fudo Ancient clan, an elder in a black robe stared grimly at Xun'er Wang and Liang Evil Fish, who were trembling with fear. In a cold voice, he said, "You two have some nerve. I gave you the sealing talisman not to deal with that sin child." Both Xun'er Wang and Liang Evil Fish turned pale, not daring to argue. Seeing their cowardly behavior, the black-robed elder snorted and said, "You two, come with me to see the young master. Report everything you know about that sin child, and the young master will decide what to do." With that, he flicked his sleeve and turned to leave. Xun'er Wang and Liang Evil Fish hurriedly followed. The three of them traversed the ancient halls and eventually arrived at a stone platform perched on the edge of a cliff. There, amidst the swirling clouds and mist, a young man in a green robe sat quietly, exuding an aura of depth and mystery. In his eyes, a crystal-like floating pagoda could faintly be seen, radiating a brilliant light. The elder in the black robe approached the man in the green robe and stood behind him with his hands clasped. Meanwhile, Xun'er Wang and Liang Evil Fish quickly kneeled, bowing respectfully. Subordinates pay their respects to the young master. The man in the green robe slowly opened his eyes. He gazed at the swirling sea of clouds before him, offering a faint smile. His voice, neither angry nor pleased, echoed calmly. "Have you encountered that sin child?"